What's up, knife freaks, sharpness geeks, and purveyors of stabby goodness? Welcome to the Knife Freak Show. My name is Jonathan McNees. This is my co-host, Mr. Chase Boatright.
Let's get ready to podcast. Please don't sue us, Michael Buffer.
No, actually, just come on and do the podcast intro for us. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Every time we do one of these intros, we'll see on this one when we play it back. So, guys, we've mentioned multiple times that Chase and I can't see each other while we're doing this. And I always, like, when I say your name, I try to, like, point to you so that, like, it's, like, you're square on the screen or whatever. And every freaking time I get it wrong. Like, it's the wrong. I never know which side you're going to pop up on the real video. And I'm like, This is my co-host, Mr. Chase Boatright, and I point to the left, and then you're to the right, and I look like a crazy person. But anyway, I'm just going to start doing it like both sides, like something. I don't know. I'm trying to like Vanna White you, like, you know, here's Chase, and I never know where you're at. So anyway, so how's the week in the shop been for you?
Oh, it was great until I ruined 2 S90V blades. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty good. Got a folder done, got it shipped out, and started working on the next one, and realized that the blade wasn't good. So I immediately I had a new blade like in the oven in about 4 hours, roughly.
Wow.
And that was surface ground. That was milling. I do like sort of a stop pin track, not like a fully internal stop pin, but I mill a stop pin track now. And, you know, it was all that. And then I somehow screwed that up on the surface grinder after heat treat the next day. So that was great. So I'll be on to the third S90V blade on Monday.
I was going to ask you, if you don't mind sharing, what happened for on the first one.
The first one, the grind was straight, but it was not centered straight. It was off at an angle. And so it was I thought it was a centering issue, like for half the time I was working on the knife. Like after I ground it, it started having centering issues, and I was like, what the hell? And I should have realized then that the grind was off. But and I just kept working on it, and then eventually I like looked at it. I don't know. You can hold it and convince yourself that it looks straight. But I eventually put like a ruler up against it, and or put a flat edge. That way I could see where it was going, and it was trailing off to one side, and that was the side it was off center to. So that made sense. And then the second one,
that's frustrating.
I ended up screwing up on the surface grinder because on the surface grinding attachment, sometimes towards the end of the blade, towards like the pivot and towards the tip, it will kind of dip off and, basically kind of taper the ends a little bit. And that's not good for, a bearing to be riding on like a tapered surface, doesn't keep things square and parallel. So
whole point of surface grinding is to get it, well, besides to get it down to size, is to get it flat and parallel. So
that kind of ruined it on that, and I kept chasing it, and it just kept getting worse, and so I pulled the plug and ordered some more S90V.
So that kind of begs the question to me then, where are you at on getting that big old surface grinder up and running?
Waiting on my buddy to have some time to come over here and help me wire up the other VFD, because
that's what you fried the VFD on? Okay, I got you.
I'm
do it.
Still not sure if that bearing, my bearing fix worked actually or not, but that's one of the biggest hangups in my shop right now is the surface grinding attachment does work, and it can work, but it's not ever going to be as good as a real surface grinder.
Right, exactly. That's why my brain went straight to that when you said that.
I'm glad that, companies make those for people that don't have enough shop space, and, they're, a lot easier to set up and hook up and all that. But again, they're a, facsimile of the real thing. They're not the real thing.
It's a make do if you can't use the real thing, basically. So and it kind of goes with the whole, like, grinders now are like, they have so many cool features and stuff, but you already know this about me, that like I am not a fan typically of multi-task type tools. Like I like dedicated tools, because kind of what you're saying, almost every single time, and I'm talking about like hand tools, I'm talking about, power tools, almost every time, if you get a tool that supposedly does multiple different things, it very rarely does any of them as good as the tool that actually is supposed to do that thing.
Yep.
And so, I'm not typically a fan, but there are cases where that's what you need or what you got. And you got to, it is what it is. But so, and I believe for the surface grinder, besides the speed control, you need the VFD to be able to, because it's a 3-phase motor on there, and that converts it to single phase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because I almost asked you, why could you not just straight wire it for now and at least test your bearing out and stuff? But then I remembered that it's 3-phase. So
yeah, we don't all have 3-phase power.
Well, believe me, I didn't for a long time.
I know.
and wasted a bunch of money and everything else on the. I might as well tell that story real quick. And this might actually help some of you out there, that as you're, if there's makers and stuff out there, and as you grow or as you start buying equipment and stuff, you could run into this. And I'm sure it's not the same everywhere, because every person's, utility companies in their area are different, obviously. But so when we built the new shop over here, we, getting hooked up to single phase power was not a big deal. But actually back up just a little bit, where I originally was going to build the shop in a slightly different spot. So kind of same area, basically kind of same property, but like on the other side of the road, a little bit farther down. And when the guy from Alabama Power came out here to look at what it was going to take to run, because I was going to have an actual power pole run there. And I was telling him, I really needed 3-phase power, whatever. And he was looking, and he was like, he just kind of did some little calculations in his head. He's like, yeah, well, you're probably looking at, 30, 40, 50 grand to, to have 3-phase power run in here, because we'll have to set all these poles and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, and at the time that was, I was like, okay, well, that's not something we can do. So I definitely can't afford that. So we just went with and even though we ended up building the shop somewhere that we didn't have to have a pole set for just single phase power. So we went ahead, but I already had that in my head that it was going to cost, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to have it put in. So we just went ahead and put in single phase power, and I bought a phase converter. I think it was like $7 or $8 grand to be able to run the first CNC when we got it. And so it worked. It worked fine. It was noisy, and it made the room that the big giant motor was in extremely hot, but it worked. So had a built-in sauna. But anyway, so then comes time to buy. Actually, I ended up getting the next 2 machines at the same time.
Yeah,
I just pulled the trigger on another new Haas, and then at the same time, somebody hit me up with a used one for sale, and I decided to go ahead and get it too. And they literally got delivered on the same day. So anyway, so we went from needing power to 1 machine to 3 machines, and I was like, the choice was laid out to me to either, get 2 more phase converters or whatever, and keep trying to add phase converters, which was going to get complicated from what I understood. So I got serious at that point. I was like, all right, well, let me just find out exactly what it actually would cost to get the power company to put 3-phase power in here. So after a bunch of back and forth, I finally got them to do it. And when it all came down to it, what they ended up doing is they kind of like, it's not prorating. They give you a certain amount. They have a formula where they estimate how much power you're going to be using in a year. And if they're going to do a job like to bring power to your shop or whatever, they take how much you're going to make a year, and then they have a formula that adds up. They'll do like up to 3 times that amount worth of work or something like that to so in other words, if you're going to have $10,000 worth of power for the year, then they'll do a job up to like $30,000 on an install without it costing you anything or something like that. So anyway, all came down to, is all said and done, I got 3-phase power running here, and I think it cost me like $1,500. something like that. So way less than the phase converter cost in the first place. I would actually save money to have real 3-phase power running here right off the bat, and not had to, and now I've got phase converters sitting around that I don't use that I really need to sell. So anyway, if any of you out there ever get to the point where you need 3-phase power, before you think it's not an option, by all means, get your power company and a utility company to nail them down and get them to give you an answer. So anyway,
a real quote,
a real quote, right? Not just some engineer out there talking and running his mouth, because, like I said, there was a huge difference between what $50,000 he was saying and $1,500 that it ended up costing me. So,
yep, for sure.
But anyway,
I forgot where we were going after that, or where we were.
It's fine. You were just talking about what was going on in the shop, and but I think we have. We had let's see, what did we say? We're going to start with a question.
Yeah, but I did want to remind everybody that Blade Show West is coming up soon, and about all that, and that y'all will be there. I will not be there. It's out in Utah. Y'all, pumping along in the shop. I'm assuming.
Yeah, we are. Honestly, we're just kind of we've been so intent on getting Dixons out there in the wild so they can, start to get into more hands and let people see what they're all about and stuff, that we really haven't done a lot of planning or putting anything back yet for the show. But it's okay. We've got time to do, what we need to do. I'm going to try to come up with probably a couple of kind of special ones for the show. And I don't know how crazy we're going to get, but at least something a little bit special. And then we are going to have quite a few of the base models and stuff. I don't know that we're going to have. We may have just a handful of random 3.5s Mac 2s, but we're getting really low on those and parts on those, so those are going to be pretty thin. Probably it's going to be mostly Dixons at the show. Probably, like I said, have just a few of those and a few Automacs, and I'm really hoping to have some fixed blades at the show, at least a handful, but we'll see. I'm currently trying to figure out the grinding on them. They're being a little bit of a pain, but I think I've just about narrowed down what the problem is. So we're working on it.
Gotcha.
But once I get the grinding kind of figured out on them, like got 2 or 3 or even 4 models that I really fixed blades that I want to, and a couple more that are still in my head that won't take long to bring to fruition if I can get the grinding part figured out. Yeah. So really looking to make a big push into the fixed blade market here the second half of the year, last say second half. We're moving right on along here.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm like, oh crap, it's already August. When did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course, I've been saying the same thing, I think, for the last 2 years. So I think it's like the third year I've been saying, by the end of the year, we're going to have a good fixed blade line. But the blade grinding has been the main thing that's held us up this whole time. So if I can get that nailed down, I think we really will be able to actually make it happen. So anyway,
sweet.
But yeah, we'll be fine for the show. We don't take just tons and tons of stuff to that show, but we take plenty. But
yeah,
that's the one show that we have to fly to out of all the shows that we do currently.
Yeah.
So there's the fun with that. But
yeah, that kind of limits, in some ways what you can bring and how much and all that. So
it definitely makes it more challenging for sure, and especially since it's just me and Amy that are going. So it's not, we don't have a team going with us or whatever. So, but it's the way we set our booth up there actually is pretty simple too, though. We basically just use the big fabric, banner in the back that's lightweight and folds up pretty small, and then we use tablecloths and just rent the tables or whatever and have from them and have tables. So we basically just have to take like tablecloths and big fabric banner, and that's pretty much it, other than just small odds and ends, and then the knives, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remember not to mess up this year. Last year, I tell you, I've got I forget what number Pelican case it is, but it's one of the big Pelican cases. And I packed all the knives in it, and I was like, all right, they're all in there together. I locked them up. I put air tags in there with it, the whole works, like to try to minimize security issues or whatever.
Yeah.
But then we get to the airport, and I pull that big old sucker up on the scale, and they're like, "Oh, this is overweight." I was like, "Crap." It was fine, but we had to pay like, I don't know, it was like an extra $100 and something, I think, to check it. But the kicker was that we were flying. I think we were flying Southwest, so we could check bags, more than one bag. I think you could check like 2 bags a piece, for free or whatever. So all I had to do was spread them out into 2 cases, and I would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I probably literally could have put like 10 knives in a different case and not been over the weight limit on the other case. But anyway, lesson learned. So I'll do it a little different this year. But yeah, the fun of traveling with cargo for a show.
Yeah, for sure. That's sounds terrifying to me, but just
yeah. Well, the terrifying part is worrying about getting there and something. I mean, we all know that losing your luggage or your luggage getting delayed at least is not uncommon with airlines, and that I'm like, please don't let that.
Please that happened to the Grimsmos at Blade Show this year. Like they,
I think it's happened. I think that's the second time it's happened. Honestly,
I think so.
I think the first time they ended up getting them before the show was over, and this time I don't think they got them at all.
No, he ended up getting them, like, I think he said it was 6 weeks later or something like that. He recently posted that he flew back down to Atlanta. All the knives were there. Everything was fine. They were just lost for 6 weeks.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, of course, they're dealing with the extra of coming cross borders, so that makes it way worse, I'm sure. But, no, that's a nightmare. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Forgot I had my microphone on my hat here.
We did have a good question that came up on the last video on YouTube from Chris Jarrett 4974. I think that was the right number thing for his username and whatnot. But so thank you, Chris, for the question. And he said, "I love the show, so please keep it up. I don't have a specific guest I would like to see, but I do have a question I would love your input on. I'm a knife enthusiast, and I only do light tasks for my EDC. My Dixon is more knife than I will ever need for my day-to-day applications. I was at Blade Show, and I saw a smaller, lesser-known maker selling a knife in 154. He says 154 CPM, so I don't know if he means CPM 154 or 154 CM, but either way, in 154 CM for around $800. It made me wonder, are my expectations skewed by influencers who put a lot of emphasis on steel type, or is the difference in steel performance often minimal compared to the impact of craftsmanship, design, and the maker's skill?"
Yeah, so that is a good question. You wanna do first, or you want me to?
I'll start off, I guess.
All right.
Considering I would be in that price bracket, and I have no problem using CPM 154 on a folder, or I use 154 CM on my fixed blades. And I don't even really see a problem. They're the same identical chemistry. I mean, I would generally go up to the CPM just because it's, on paper, it's a better idea, more refined, steel.
Right.
But, and, I know you used a lot of CPM 154, but
yep,
I have, in the custom realm versus the production realm, definitely I would say that you're looking, the sum of the materials is not necessarily the same as the price tag of the materials as much as it is in the custom world. If I make a knife out of 154 CM and titanium, and Michael Walker makes a knife out of 154 CM and titanium, they're going to sell at 2 different prices. On that basis alone, but also on the influencer side of things, yes, influencers definitely put way too much emphasis on steel type, and they kind of always have. It's always been sort of, pushing for more, and only wanting to have what's, best on paper, even if, all they do is cut tape on, new knife boxes and stuff like that. And I understand that. I get that point, but CPM 154 is a very well-rounded steel, very good steel. and there's nothing wrong with it at all. And when you're, looking at all these different steels, it's not necessarily what's best, it's what suits you best in a lot of ways, or what you like most. Because once you get to a certain point in the steel hierarchy, I think you reach a point of diminishing returns where you're paying for performance that you don't need. It's like getting a Hellcat for getting groceries, basically. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, very, very similar to what you're saying. And we've touched on stuff that, pertains to this in a few different times. One being the fact that no one steel or no one knife even is necessarily going to be the right tool for the job for every task. So it goes back to what you just said, that it depends on what you're going to use it for, that kind of stuff. If you're just doing normal everyday cutting tasks, which, like I said, I think the original question was basically just just general EDC knife. But even that, a general EDC knife to somebody that works in an office, and and I'm not knocking anybody one way or the other, but just like somebody to say that works in an office, maybe doesn't have a lot of outdoor hobbies or whatever, they're just kind of a general dude, is probably going to be different requirements for somebody that works a really blue collar job in construction, or at a mill or whatever, or or has lots of outdoor hobbies and stuff, like whether you're out doing camping and bushcrafting and that kind of stuff, or hunting and fishing, and there's whether you're cleaning game with stuff, or there's a lot of or somebody that works on a farm. There's a different people's lifestyle dictates a lot of what a good EDC carry would be for them, because hell, for some people an EDC carry might include a tomahawk or a a hatchet or whatever. Guys out here doing fire jumpers and stuff, like, have a whole lot different need than somebody that's clocking in and out at the local office building down here. So again, depending on what you're doing on your free time and stuff like that, somebody that's going scuba diving is going to have different needs than somebody that's in a really that's using a knife in the desert, like. So lots of variety there as far as what's the best. So I totally agree with Chase that, like, yes, the influencers in general, not that they're wrong about the properties of the steel necessarily, but as far as how it actually affects what you need or what's better, being a complete snob about it to the point where you're writing off a knife just because it has a what's being considered a lesser steel is kind of ridiculous. Honestly, it's just that's all social media driven, whatever. Not hysteria, but whatever. It's social media driven behavior. Yeah. So it's because again, there's been you could argue that people have probably, especially at least for like a lot of people in the EDC community, there are probably people now are probably not using knives as hard as people did 50 years ago, when most of these steels didn't exist, and those people were getting by really well with the steels that they had. You know what I mean? Like, they're not that it couldn't have been better, and we have made great improvements, but it's just a lot of it just comes down to talking points. Like, it's kind of like you said, it's at some point it's overkill, and you got your Ford, like you said, a Hellcat, or like you got your big outdoor. I think a good example of it would be the in the Jeep world. There's the mall crawlers that people like to call it. They're all built up for off-road stuff, but then they never actually go off-road. And again, I'm not knocking it because they look cool as hell. Like, I don't care. I don't care if you're taking it off-road or not. If I see a good-looking Jeep, I'm going to admire it either way. But to worry about that, you got exactly the the best transmission, that you got exactly the right gear ratio, that you've got the right suspension, that you got all that, when you're literally never getting off the pavement, is all just kind of, it's kind of crazy,
Yeah. And
but,
to be clear, like, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing to have more steel, more edge performance than you need, or I don't think it's a bad thing that we have, all the great, steels that we have. But you just, you kind of have to be honest with yourself of whether, do you actually need that? And also, do you like the knife enough to, if you are, more in the knife steel nerd sort of camp, like if you are sort of, a steel snob in some way, do you like the knife enough to overcome it? Not having your favorite steel or what you perceive to be the best steel. It's all a matter of preference. And if you don't like it enough, you don't buy the knife. It's not, it's all down to personal preference and what you like. That's all this really is,
right.
Do I need 120 knives sitting by my bedside table? Probably not, but I like it, so I do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people too, I think it causes people to miss out on really good knives that they would really like and really enjoy. Yes. And they kind of turn their nose up at them just because it has a steel that, 5 or 10 years ago was considered top of the line super steel. But now, because something else came along, that steel's being looked at as, I'm sorry, but, a whatever, I keep going back to the car stuff, but like, a McLaren from 10 years ago isn't a piece of crap because it's 10 years old. Yeah. I mean, it's still a McLaren. Like,
yeah,
it's, you gotta keep this stuff in perspective. And like I said, you're definitely not. And what really bugs me is when people get on this kick of like almost trashing out the maker or the company, because the same thing happens with, on the production side too. Yeah. But like turning your nose up or even like trashing out a company or a maker because they're using some steel that not what you consider the top of the line steel, like that's just, it's a little ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah.
But
sure.
The other thing that you need to consider is the steel itself. The composition of the steel is only one factor in how that knife is going to perform. So even if you're actually worried about the actual performance of the knife,
and it's the least important of the factors.
Right, exactly. It's like the blade grind, how the edge is done, the sharpness of it, the heat treat on that steel. Because just because something is marked, MagnaCut or CPM 154 or whatever, those are not all exactly the same from one maker or one company to the other. Like the heat treat, all that plays a lot on it. And you could have the best heat treated knife on the best heat treated steel out there. And if it's made like, say a steel that takes a really good edge and keeps an edge a long time. Well, say it's heat treated to the absolute max. It's the best heat treat it can have on it. It's the best steel that we can get our hands on. But then the blade is made like a freaking splitting wedge, and it's got a crappy, thick edge on it.
Yeah.
It may get sharp, but it's not going to stay sharp and it's not going to slice. Like all day long, give me a knife made out of 1095 with a good edge geometry and a good heat treat on it over a crappy one that's made out of MagnaCut that has a great heat treat but crappy grinds and crappy edge geometry. Like there's so many different factors that factor in, mainly being the heat treat and the edge geometry, that there's more things to worry about than just the name of the steel, and people get hung up on that. And
I would get it in some way, because I mean, like in the production world, that is very much, there's sort of a ladder that gets climbed, I guess, as if climbed is a word. You go from the 8CR 13 MOVs and the plastic handles to D2 and G10 to 154 CM, and then you get up into the S30Vs and the S35 VNs and up to 20 CV and MagnaCut, and like it sort of is a ladder like that in the full production world. Not talking about small batch, sort of stuff, but it's sort of like what you can expect for the price point. But also that's not always indicative of what is best either.
Well, and I would actually go so far as to say that a lot of times that as you kind of go up that hierarchy and you expect, as a company puts out knives that are higher price, they have the more premium steels on them, that it's not just because that company necessarily thinks that steel is that much better. It's just that they know that people aren't going to buy it if it doesn't have those steels in there, So it's not necessarily that, but it gives the perception that if it's not that steel, that it's not, that their premium line needs to have these steels in it, or else it's not considered premium. But it's kind of a self-perpetuating thing that sure, if everything else being equal, you give me good blade grinds, good edge geometry, good heat treat, and then a premium knife steel, yes, I'll take that all day long over all those same factors and a less premium steel. Again, depending on what you want to use it for, that it kind of all just depends. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that honestly, it's kind of gotten a little bit more out of hand. Social media has definitely affected that. People, I don't think this used to be quite as bad back in the days, like when it was the forums and stuff. Like there was some steel snobbery going on or whatever, but like you could still sell. I mean, I sold knives and CPM 154 had been around a while, but it was still considered a good. It's not like it was a bargain basement steel. It was a good steel. It had been a solid steel for a long time, and so I used a crap ton of that. I've got kitchen knives at the house that I might have, which at the time I don't think very many people were making kitchen knives out of CPM 154, but like they've held up great. Like they work fantastic.
Yeah, so, CPM 154 is one of those very versatile steels that I would be fine making a kitchen knife, and I would be fine making a chopper out of it. It's a very versatile steel like that.
Right. And so it's just but then I've also taken 1095 that I've heat treated and beat the ever living crap out of it, all the way back to some of my very first YouTube videos way back then when I was hammering one through the lid of a dryer and everything else. Like
I need to link that.
Yeah. It's crazy how good of a performance you can get out of some of this stuff if you know what you're doing, and you get all the factors to include the geometry, the heat treat, and all that combined with the type of steel, then a lot of people now, I think, kind of as we talked about the other day a little bit about the disposable world that we live in. I think people have also gotten really used to, they want as low maintenance as possible, so like, even though there's some really good steels out there that are not stainless, like not in all circles. So still in some of the circles, like I said, bushcraft and some of these circles, that stuff, a lot of that's still really popular, but in a lot of the other, and more in like the EDC world, it's like those steels get their nose turned up at, but like they're still really good steels, and there's nothing that says that you shouldn't have to maintain your stuff, like back to the McLaren a minute ago. I mean, you're still going to want to keep the oil changed in it. You're still going to want to, keep it washed and keep a wax job on it, protect the paint. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be a certain amount of maintenance that needs to be done. But I think that as we've moved into more, disposable and we want it disposable, we want it maintenance free. We don't have to fool with it. We just want it perfect all the time without doing anything to it. And that's not really achievable. I mean, you can cut down on the maintenance and stuff, but anyway, I think all of those are factors in why we've gotten so hung up on the names of the steels and stuff, versus how they actually perform.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know how you would do it. I would love to set up a blind testing sometime and send out some knives that are, the customers don't know what steel they are, and let them, rate the performance and stuff. And then, then record what the steels actually were and what they rated the performance or whatever, and see if it actually held up. So in other words, 10 people got MagnaCut and 10 people got, CPM 154, let them use them for a month or whatever, and then see if the ratings on them for their performance were, in theory, based on everything that everybody talks about, all these influencers to talk about, then the ratings for the 150 CPM 154 should average considerably lower than for the Magna Cut, right? I mean, based on, right. So I would like to do a blind thing and see if that actually panned out. And it might, I don't know, but I don't think it would.
Yeah, I don't
think
either.
I think you would find people would convince themselves that, I got the Magna Cut, or you could just not tell them what steel it is. I don't know what the best way to do it would be, to either, just totally blind, or be like, all right, you've either got Magna Cut or you've got CPM 154, and just see. Because actually, it'd be cool to do it both ways. Because I think that would skew it. I think people would convince themselves, this has got to be the Magna Cut, and then they'd rate it good, versus or the other way around. Like, I think this one's CPM 154. I better
and we would have to get like what they thought it was, and then compare it to what the thing actually is.
Right.
That would be an interesting little project. I just don't know how to actually do that. But Chris, that was, that is a very
good
detailed, very nuanced question. But we do appreciate it, and hopefully we answered it in some sort of capacity. But especially when you're getting up into I would say the higher end or the custom market, you're definitely looking at more other factors, I would say, than just the alphanumeric code that's stamped on the side of the blade.
Make sure that, and again, it also goes back to, there's even a difference. Well, no, it's probably more magnified with custom makers, but we've kind of talked about before too, with some of the stuff, that like a certain amount of what you're paying for is the brand or the maker's reputation and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So like, that stuff factors in, it's whether we want to think it does or not, it does factor in. So that goes into it too.
There's certain makers, like right off the top of my head, I think of Bob Dozier. I don't want a Bob Dozier knife in Magna Cut. I want a Bob Dozier knife in D2.
Yeah, that's what he's known for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like you said, somebody like Michael Walker or somebody like that, I don't give a crap. Like, make it in freaking, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'd still like to have it regardless. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, it doesn't need to be a premium steel by any means, and he's still going to be able to demand, top dollar prices. So
he can make a simple folder out of 1084 and I'd be all about it.
That's right. So lots of factors there, but bottom line, yes, I think it's overblown by the influencers and stuff, and just, the best thing you can do is try different stuff and see what you like, and you may find that one particular steel works for you. You also may find that you get a knife in the same steel from 2 or 3 different makers or companies, and none of them perform the same. Because, like we said, there's a lot of other factors that factor in. So that's more likely what you will find. But anyway, great question.
All right. So moving on to a little bit of levity after that, we had a knife story sent in by one Mr. John Bidwell. I believe you were going to do us a dramatic reading of that.
We'll see. I don't know how dramatic, but I mainly wanted to read it because I can totally relate, because me and John are basically about the same age. So, I can totally relate with this story. Some of it, I'm going to have to question a little bit of it here, but anyway. So yes, we asked for you guys' knife stories, and so we got one for you here. So I'm going to read Mr. John Bidwell's email. And John, thank you for sending this in. Somebody had to go first. Now, the rest of you guys need to quit being shy and send us some stories. So he says, "What's up, knife freaks? Okay, here's my story. This is way back olden days stuff." Well, I'm reading it, so no, it's not. It wasn't that long ago. Us old guys got to stick together. All right. I know I was a first grader, but the year is a little fuzzed out. 77 to 79 approximately. Again, first grade. It's Christmas morning, sometime in between 77 and 79. And I remember getting my first old-timer pocket knife. We did a lot of stuff outdoors, hiking to lakes, camping, fishing, typical Oregonian outdoor stuff with your family. And I got my very first pocket knife in first grade on Christmas. Notice he wasn't worried about what steel it was. back to the last question. All right. I was so excited. So then my last gift I opened is I remember being so excited because I got a Stretch Armstrong, the green monster or something, not sure 100%, but it was Stretch Armstrong's Enemy, and he was Swamp Thing green, and I loved it. And I'm with you. I do not remember. He sent us a picture of it, and maybe you can link that, Chase.
Yeah.
I do not remember his name either, John, but I 100% remember this character. I don't think I ever had. Actually, I may have. I don't remember for sure. Anyway, it's cool. If you guys don't know what Stretch Armstrong is, you just need to look it up and see, because it was cool as crap. And especially if you're a destructive young man like I am, and sounds like John definitely was. Lets you work out some of your destructive stuff without actually tearing stuff up in most cases. John's excluded. So he got the swamp green monster, loves it. So the next morning he's sitting in his bedroom with all the new toys, and he got the pocket knife and probably some socks and underwear, typical Christmas stuff back then. I'm opening that 2-blade old timer thinking it's so cool. I can carve, I can whittle, I can trim everything, cut everything. Didn't matter. He just needed something to cut. So then the monster is getting stretched aggressively, which is the whole deal with the Stretch Armstrong. Like you could stand on one arm of it and stretch the other one out. Like you can stretch those things seem like 2 feet.
Yeah.
And so, and actually that's exactly what he said. It was so cool to stand on one arm and pull the other, and it didn't break. But then his invasive thoughts got to him, because he says, then the crafty outdoorsman in me thought. I don't think it was the crafty outdoorsman, John. I think it was the destructive kiddo, but that's all right. What's inside of this thing? Yep. Next thing you know, old man walks in asking, how many pancakes do I want? 10 minutes later, I'm getting the paddled ass of a lifetime for messing around and cutting the toy from snooter to tooter, then had the knife taken away from me. So snooter to tooter, he cut her open. Had to see what was inside. I'm thinking probably not realizing that would be the end of said toy, but hopefully some reason and thinking got a little better down the line. Finally got another old timer the following year from good old grandpa, but the toy is gone forever. And yeah. All right. So then though, okay. That sounds like some pretty typical kid with a knife and a toy stuff. I'm at least glad it didn't involve any blood, at least any of yours.
Yeah.
Because then he goes on with a follow-up to say, and this is where I got to start to question Mr. John Bidwell just a little bit. I'm really hoping he's grown out of this decision making here. So also, if I did not mention in that email, when I cut it open, it was purple and it tasted sweet like sugar. It was syrupy. So it says that in some info, but I actually tasted it off the old timer blade. So either Mr. John Bidwell is a bit of a psychopath, and the kind that would, like stab somebody or cut somebody and then lick the blood off the knife.
Yeah.
Or he just had some really bad impulse control as a kid, and he thought it looked sweet and syrupy, and so he had to give her a taste. So
I wonder what's inside. I wonder what it tastes like. I mean,
that's a little bit of a stretch for me, pun intended there. Yeah, I can see the cutting it open thing, but the tasting it, that's got me a little bit worried there, John. But I believe you probably turned out okay. You seem like a pretty good dude now, so apparently it didn't hurt you. And I'm sure it was probably non-toxic being in a toy, especially back in those days. Like they,
I'm sure
they knew somebody was going to be eating that. It also kind of made me wonder why.
Does he have 3 eyes? Or
I have not met John in person yet to see if he has 3 eyes.
Okay.
We maybe, hopefully not, but yeah. I kind of made me wonder if maybe he missed his calling, why he didn't go in the Marine Corps, because that sounds exactly like, Dad eating crayons, that kind of stuff. That seems exactly like you were probably Marine Corps material, John. But so Highly do not recommend probably cutting open your brand new toy. I definitely don't highly recommend tasting whatever's inside of it. But apparently he got away with it, other than having a paddled ass. So
makes for a good story at the very least.
Yeah, and missing and no more stretch. So it sounds like he got to stretch on him for about a day, and then decided to go Dr. Frankenstein on him, and there we go. So
that does actually remind me of a similar-ish story that of my youth of playing with knives and stuff. I was messing around with my knife, like digging in the dirt or doing something dumb one day we had a little shed where my dad kept his bass boat, and there was some old spray paint cans laying around, and shaking them around and thinking, I wonder what's in there, and I wonder if I can get it out. And I basically did that. Took my it was a stag for fake stag with a little like brass S-guard, real swoopy, upswept blade sort of knife, and stabbed it in the paint can that turned out to be pink spray paint. And I found out there was a marble inside, but there's still pink spray paint on that knife today.
I thought it was headed towards ending up on the boat. No, you didn't get spray paint on the boat. Okay.
No, I was smart enough to go around like to the other side. There was something in between. There was like the boat in one bay, and then there was like some plywood and stuff set up on one of the poles on the other side. And I was smart enough to go over there and do it there. But yeah. No, I don't think I ended up getting in trouble for it at all. I just, ended up with with pink spray paint all over me, my knife.
So you got the marble
my cousin,
out of it,
who is a Marine. Yeah. But yeah, the Marine tendencies is what made me think of that, because my cousin was there and he's in the Marines now. So.
Yeah, he might have been egging you on a little bit.
Yeah, probably. We tended to do that. So.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure that I did some dumb stuff like that when I was a kid too. None of it. Nothing's ringing a bell. I know we had to take our son's knife. Actually, I think we took like all his knives away from him at this point. He was well old enough to know better. Some point we went in there, and so the bedroom furniture in his room was like bedroom furniture that had been in the family for I don't know if it was Amy's or her brother's or somebody. It was passed down furniture that it wasn't like super fancy or anything, but it was intended to stay in the family,
Yeah.
And we go in there one day, and he's been carving in the headboard of it with a knife for no apparent reason. So yeah, that led to a confiscation for I think a few weeks of all of his sharp objects and everything else. I think he even had some nunchucks that we took away or something too. Like everything that along that line got confiscated for a little bit. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Well, I'm glad you survived, John. That was that could have been a tale we never heard if they hadn't had enough foresight to put non-toxic jelly syrup in the Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that's why it was sweet, and they knew somebody was going to do it, but
I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. That's a good one, John. Guys, please, surely some other guys out there, some of you got some other stories for us. So don't be shy. John has shared, and if he shared eating the goo, then surely y'all can share yours.
Yes. So, in preparation for potentially interviewing other people, Jonathan had the idea of possibly swapping some interview-esque questions between us back and forth, stuff we've never directly asked each other and stuff like that, so we can kind of, again, practice for that, but also share some, sort of insight to ourselves and our businesses and, that sort of stuff with you guys as well.
Yeah.
So, you want to lead off?
Sure. And so, like you said, we're going to practice because we are working, guys, on trying to see about getting some guests lined up. So hang in there for that, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun if we can get it all logistically lined up. So, yes, to practice, let's start with Chase here, and let's see. So what I wanted to know first, pretty basic, kind of generic, but where do you see your business, you, your business, whatever, in 5 years?
Well, hopefully making more knives than I am now. in a long way around a short conversation. I don't know what that looks like at the current moment. I'm very heavily looking at a CNC right now, looking at power requirements and where I'm going to put the thing and all that sort of stuff. But regardless of whether I do that or if I know a couple people with CNCs in the US that, be willing to make parts for me and, be able to do sort of a mid-tech type of thing. I mainly just want to be able to make more knives and have more availability and, put more stuff out there so more people can experience it.
Right.
But as far as some grand master plan, I am not necessarily a good evil villain in that sense. I don't tend to do good long-term plans like that.
Well, to be honest with you, a general idea of a plan and direction is basically about the best you can do anyway, because I guarantee you anybody that does especially for a length of time like 5 years, if you try to do an actual super detailed plan, it's going to change like a lot. Yeah. So it's, but at the same time, you don't, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying you in general, the people doing anything like this, like you also don't want to, not think about it and not kind of formulate at least a rough plan.
Yes.
You don't want to use that as a crutch to be like, well, it's going to change anyway, so I'll just wing it and see where we go. Because you definitely need to have a direction in mind.
I saw Clay and Courtney of eKnives post something shortly after Blade Show. They did what they called a vision day, basically trying to map out the next 4 or 5, 10 years of their business and that sort of thing. And that's something I've been meaning to sit down and do, like me and my wife sit down and actually get a rough plan together, not entirely step by step down to the nano level sort of thing,
right?
But, a rough step of try to hit these goals on this timeline and move forward with that.
Well, yeah, and then if you kind of know where you want to go, then you're basically trying to reverse engineer it of how to get there.
Yeah,
like that's basically the idea, is know where you want to go, because you got to know where you want to go in the first place, or you ain't gonna get there. Just like when you get in a car, like you can't just randomly start driving and end up somewhere that you want to be or whatever. If you have somewhere that you want to be, you've got to know where that place is. But anyway, so that's so do you, a couple of little follow-up questions then, do you foresee, this could push past the 5-year mark potentially, but at some point, even with a CNC, even if you end up with a couple of CNCs, you're going to reach a point where manpower is going to limit how much you can do. Even if you got a CNC making parts or whatever, like somebody still got to run the CNC, you got to program it, you got to, you got to do all the CAD and CAM work, you got to run it, you got to swap parts out, and like I said, if you just start adding CNCs, well, then you end up spending more time loading and unloading CNCs than you do putting knives together and so on and so forth.
Making parts instead of making knives.
I know you know all these things from just in general, but also having lived it in our shop. So, do you foresee, for now at least, just trying to maximize what you can do as a one-man show?
Yeah, for now. And probably for the next 5 years, depending on how, far that goes. I mean, you like you've been talking about the past few weeks, you'll get to the point where you reach and you see bottlenecks and where things need to change and be filled in. And, at this point, I need more parts. I spend most of my time making folder parts instead of making knives, I feel like. More time, like I said, I cut out a blade, I ground the profile, I drilled the hole, or, I ground the profile, I surface ground it, I drilled the holes, I milled the stop pin track, I heat treated it, and it's all for nothing, basically, at this point. Since I ruined it. But, and, I know ruining things still happens. There's no
oh yeah,
perfect work.
Unfortunately, yeah. Well, it depending on how you do it. I mean, the way
Yeah.
we're doing it with trying to do, I mean, because you can run one knife at a time, one knife worth of parts at a time on a CNC. There's nothing that says you have to run, a whole pallet full of parts or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way we do it, typically, if I don't usually just mess up one, it's usually multiples because it's a whole pallet of them or whatever. But yeah, you already know way too
There's
well.
another maker here in Alabama, Ware Knives, Matthew Warewine, that's about an hour or so east of me, and he recently got a CNC about a year ago, and he's been sort of doing this transition instead of full handmade. Now he, cuts blades and handle scales and stuff, and does all the milling and drilling on the CNC, and then hand grinds it, hand grinds the blade still, and then does all his finishing techniques that he does. But he's able to pump out more due to having more good parts available.
Oh yeah,
having more consistent parts available.
Right. You get rid of a lot of the kind of mundane and in some ways lesser skill level required tasks and stuff. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of skill. I mean, not just anybody off the street can't just walk into a grinder and put a clean profile on a part or drill holes accurately or whatever. But at the same time, it doesn't take usually a whole lot of time to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
But now you start getting into the knowledge of how to fit up the lock, fit up the detent, grind the blades, all that kind of stuff. You're getting into the higher level skill stuff. And that sounds like what you're trying to do is kind of, and it's, you're trading it for another set of skills. You're trading it for being able to run the CNC and do them on there. But just, assuming that you've developed those skills, then you're basically trading those skills for the mundane, lesser skill level stuff where you can get those taken care of with a machine, and then you can do the higher level activities, that the machine doesn't do or whatever.
So. Yeah, and I don't know if I'll, hog out some of the bevels on the machine and not like, just try to take out material and not necessarily, try to do bevels on the machine. I don't think I'll be going quite that far yet. Still trying to, make it more of a, I don't know. I don't want to. My biggest thing, I think, my biggest hang up that I'm afraid of doing at this point is I've spent 5 years now, and more than that actually, trying to build up these skills of being able to make a knife with my hands. And I have that skill, and it's something I am very afraid of losing. Now, in a business sense, that doesn't make sense, but on a esoteric, self-fulfilling, whatever sort of side, that's one of the things that scares me about sort of going full production.
It's a trade-off. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, at least for a while. I mean, it's somewhat of a trade-off of, you don't completely, like I think I would be way slower than I used to be, and I'm probably would end up messing some stuff up and having to redo it. But I think I could still, build one just from raw materials and a bandsaw and drill press and all that good stuff. But, I definitely don't have the amount of skill to just hop over there and do that as I used to. So
especially with like grinding blades, that's one of those things that even, if I go a week or two without grinding a blade, I can tell. Yeah. And so like that's one of those things that, if you don't use that skill, it sort of diminishes over time. I mean, you can get back up on the bike and figure it out and remember how to do it, but it's, I don't know. That's one of the things I think that's
skill.
Holding me up in between the ears more so than anything.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, like I said, you could do basically everything you're talking about other than just, still do the blade grinds by hand and then, but just have more parts flow. And I think that would totally work to increase your output the way you're talking about while still kind of maintaining very close proximity to the end product of what you're putting out now.
Yeah.
Like, I think you could come up with a product that would be almost identical, unless you intentionally, like you wanted to start doing like milling patterns and stuff like that you can't do now, like on handles and stuff. But like, if you chose to make a knife that's exactly like what you're making now, but you incorporated a CNC, the way you're talking about doing, then I think that you could put the two sides side by side and wouldn't tell much difference, to the untrained eye. So,
yeah,
I think that's totally doable.
So yeah, that's sort of my plan at the moment.
Okay.
Did you want to sort of answer that question yourself? Like what your plan is for the next 5 years?
Yeah, I can pretty quickly, and then let you do your. You said you have another actual question for me, right?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay. So yeah, for me, kind of the same. Like I don't have an exact. I probably should. I don't have like an exact number, or whatever. But basically, I just want to continue down the path that we're going, but be considerably bigger. I want to have. I would say within 5 years, I would like to be able to have probably at least triple the amount of employees that we've got right now, which would put us well into the double digits at that point.
Yeah.
And we will for sure probably be expanded into a second building at that point. At least we're already actually talking about. We haven't gotten serious about exactly what size we want to do and all that, but we're already talking about adding a second building. So
nice.
So yeah, I want to, well, like I said, we've got another machine case. It's getting to the point where it's going to start to get pretty crowded if we keep everything under one roof like this. So
yeah,
and if we clear out.
In 2021, it was me, you, and Luke before we moved into the new shop. How many employees do you have now?
We have 6 now, not counting me and Amy.
Okay.
But, I mean, technically, Amy's a full-time employee too that was not there then, so that's 7. And then, I mean, I was obviously already doing full-time.
You've basically already tripled, from what,
right,
you had then. So I mean, that was 4 years
within the last 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's reasonable to think that we'd at least probably triple within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a different building, moving in. We want to move our office, basically all the non-machining stuff, like all the non-dirty stuff. Our office, all the shipping stuff, the laser, all that stuff over into another building, and so that we can just continue to fill this one up with machines, because it's by the time that next machine gets in here, it's going to start to get a little bit crowded. So
yeah. Do you plan on moving assembly to the new, or would that all be?
For a long time, that's what I wanted to do, but honestly, it depends. If we get to the point like I'm trying to get to, where assembly is more just pure assembly, and they're not constantly running back and forth, like if I can I'm currently trying to get things tweaked to where we can start cutting locks with the machines and stuff instead of having to do it the way we currently do it. The way we currently do it, they're having to run back and forth to the grinder and stuff to fit stuff up too much that it doesn't make sense to have it in a separate building.
Yeah.
But if I can get it to the point where everything can get done, machining wise, and then we're literally just assembling, or maybe just tweaking, fine tuning just the D10 or something like that at the assembly desk, then yes, I would kind of like to move that over there so it's in a clean area, separate from all the machines, and that also would free us up a little bit of space for machines and stuff. So
yeah, well, may be able to move it if you move y'all's office to the other building. Might be able to have like an assembly room possibly. But
yeah. That actually is a good thought. That's for sure possible. That way, at least kind of keeps it a little bit cleaner and stuff. So keep it enclosed. So yeah, more employees, more machines, at least one more building. I'm trying to plan this one out and build it. I don't want to do it too soon and not be able to afford to build it as big as I'd like to build it, so that we have plenty of room to grow. But at the same time, I don't want to wait too long either. So
don't want to be doing the shuffle in between everybody.
Right. Like we were doing. I don't want to reach a point where it's hurting our productivity because we're so crowded.
Yeah.
I'd like to spread it out before then. I also want to have a little, not that this makes a lot of difference one way or the other with us being out here in the middle of nowhere where we're at, but I want to have a small little lobby, area in the new building with like a little display area or whatever. And
yes,
somewhere
strong desire to have like a little lobby with like, even at my level, I want to do that. And there's no reason for me to do that, but I want to have a little lobby with all the models and some cool stuff hung around. Yeah.
It's just it's cool. It makes some good place to get, shoot cool content and stuff like that. And then, we do have visitors semi-regularly. Sometimes, actual knife people that make a trip or whatever and come, but also, we have locals that just pop in that, oh, I heard there was a knife shop here. I just wanted to see what y'all do, whatever. And which is fine, but we don't need people just walking into the shop like that. You know what I mean? Like into with machines and all that stuff. So, which is currently what happens. And so we do that. We'll put a sign on the door or whatever, and we'll probably keep the door to the machine shop locked. And then that way if somebody is going to come up and just pop in, they'll at least pop into an actual formal lobby and not be just up in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
So, that's, I don't have an exact, I can't tell you exactly how many knives I want to be producing. I know I do want to have this will, hopefully it's going to expand quite a bit between now and then, but starting very soon, I want an expanded lineup of products. Like I want more models. I want more variety. I'm really kind of hyper focused on that right now, trying to get us more variety and stuff, more offerings that we can put out there. So that's a big thing, especially over the next 5 years, is to build up a bigger catalog of products and stuff. So, that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was expecting, but it's, good to hear some of the, actual thoughts. And I didn't know you were planning on a new building at any point, or I mean, I knew you at some point you would want a new building, but
right.
I didn't know that was already possibly on the horizon.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I got a feeling probably no later than next year we'll at least be started on it, if not full on building it. So
sweet. All right. So I also had a question for you that I don't know if I've ever asked you sort of directly, or, I don't know if I've asked you on the podcast, or I don't think I've ever asked you on the podcast. I'm not sure if I've ever, put it quite like this, but when did you decide or think, that you wanted to go into the production side of knife making instead of sort of staying in the custom realm?
When did I kind of flip that switch?
Yeah.
So it actually it was right around the time to when I really actually made my mind up. I would say it was actually right about the time we met. That it was honestly, I feel like I was
burning hot at that point. So I wasn't sure
at the risk of sounding a little, woo-hoo, whatever, hippie crazy. Like I really kind of feel like that, you came along, that was kind of I was being looked out for, that hey, you're wanting to do this. And, one of my big issues with doing that was where do I find employees? Well, how do I even go about beginning to get somebody to help me or whatever?
Yeah.
And, then you just popped up out of the blue. So, and that, I mean,
fell out of the stars.
Just fell out of the stars aligned, and there was Chase. So, and like we've talked about before, we've told the story before, but that, you started off just kind of helping do some of the work we were talking about that you may eliminate with your CNC or wherever. You started helping me with some of the just kind of the grunt work and stuff, and to speed me up on my custom stuff. But then pretty quickly, I think pretty much right off the bat, we were setting things in motion, but it took a little bit to get everything rolling.
Yeah.
We started getting the parts done by the OEM shop. I always have to qualify that because I don't, you know how people are. So a U.S. OEM shop. And then, you were the production side of things, and I was still building customs, and Luke was doing everything in between, shipping stuff and doing the laser work for both sides of the thing and all that. So and I think you kind of already know this, but I will say what led up to it. So I went for years. I was totally happy with what I was doing. I always admired what the other guys were doing that had built into production companies like Emerson and Hinder, Strider, all these guys that had, started out as custom makers, and, some of the other, if you go back far enough in history, I'm sure you see some of that with some of the big companies like, Benchmade and whatever, but like they're so big at this point that I didn't really relate to them and their story as much. It was the guys that I could see, especially some of them that I had seen grow, from a smaller production company into a bigger production company. I didn't necessarily see their full transition from custom to production, but I did get to see them grow as production companies as I was coming up. So I always admired that, and I think deep down I wanted to be able to do that, but I don't think I had the confidence or whatever to believe that I could do that. Like it was like kind of like a pipe dream kind of thing, and I didn't get serious about, okay, I could actually do this. And then I got to credit Amy, which is true of most good things that I've done in my life, that she gets credit for at the very least prompting me, if not if not almost all the credit. But I never listened to podcasts and stuff before this, so then she got me listening to a Dave Ramsey podcast, and just about how his stuff is, financial stuff in general started. And I was reaching an age where I was paying more attention to like financial stuff and all, like, hey, we get at some point I'm going to be retiring and so on and so forth, or whatever, or I'm going to be getting older, I'm going to need to have some money put away. So started paying attention to that, and then that led to listening to other podcasts, and then led to one in particular, which was at the time called the MFCEO podcast. Andy Frisella, he's been a huge impact on everything to do with, whole life in general, but especially on this side of things. It was a lot of business content, self-improvement kind of stuff, and honestly, it kind of gave me the confidence to be like, okay, well, I could do this too. Like, there's no reason I can't do this. Like, if other people have done it, then it's doable. And so it just was kind of a slow burn to get my confidence to the point where I could take it to another level, that I felt like, and we've talked about in the past where I felt like I had to pay my dues. That was certainly part of it. I felt like I had to reach a point where, I had been making knives long enough and had enough of a following built up, enough of a reputation built up, that it made sense to, just kind of a natural progression to move into production stuff versus just some guy that nobody's heard of. Hey, I want to have a production knife company. And people do it. That's certainly doable too, because plenty of people at this point have done it. But in my mind, that was not the route to take or whatever. Plus, I had too much, craftsman in me or whatever, that I wanted to be able to have that artistic expression still too, not just build a company.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of how that transition got started. Some little prompting from Amy, listening to some podcasts, a lot of prompting and learning and opening my mind up from there, and reading some books that went along with that. And then, like I said, good timing with you coming along. I felt like I was kind of,
star child.
Yeah, star child. The stars aligned, and things. And honestly, I feel like ever since that's been the way it's been too. Like just things kind of like align. There's been times when I've forced the issue and I thought they were aligning, and turns out not so much. But
You're
I think
just
I probably
at it crooked.
Yeah, I still probably lessons that I needed to learn. And that's probably why it happened.
I think it happened, for a reason that,
Yeah.
Probably, you probably wanted it to be at a little different time than it was happening. But, I think it's one of those things you kind of have to learn when trying to build a machine like you're building.
Yeah. You have to, it's with anything you're building like this, you've got to pay your tuition. I didn't go to business school or machining school or whatever. Like, if you're going to learn something, you're going to pay a tuition somewhere, whether it be at a formal school or whether it be in the mistakes you make along the way. And I've definitely paid a lot of tuition along the way on both sides of it, on the business side and the actual technical side of stuff. So So I think that was a good idea, and we're starting to run a little bit long. So I think we can give ourselves time, and next week we'll throw this in as a segment as well, so we can, like I said, hone our interview skills here a little bit.
Yeah.
That sounds good to you.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I enjoyed kind of hearing, I thought I knew some of the pieces, but yeah, like I wasn't sure of the exact sort of timing and all that went into it, and when you sort of flipped that switch. So that was cool to hear about that.
Yeah, likewise. I like hearing, especially since I kind of, have a little bit of a vested interest in seeing where your future goes. So I like hearing the plans on it. So that's good.
For sure. Yeah. I think my biggest hurdle at this point is I'm not one to borrow or, borrow money in sort of a lot of ways. The only thing I owe money on right now is my house. And I think I need to kind of get over that at some point to be able to.
Well, I can tell you if you're gonna run a business, you got to be smart about it now.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure. But I mean, you can.
I think
overdo it, but
I think I'm hamstringing myself at this point more than anything else by not having some sort of extraneous cash flow to be able to advance, machinery or improvements that need to be made and stuff like that. But
anyway. Sometimes you got to, depending on how you look at it. If you look at taking on a little bit of debt as a step back, then you got to look at it as you're taking a step back to take 3 or 4 steps forward, or more, even some cases. So it's it's extremely hard to do when you're talking about equipment that costs what CNCs cost, stuff like that. That's and what you got to look at is, okay, I'm going to go into debt for a few years and have to make payments on this thing. But if you don't do it, how much money are you leaving on the table that you could make in those 4 or 5 years or whatever till it's paid off, because you don't have it.
Yeah.
And if assuming everything goes relatively smoothly, then that equation, if you could actually put numbers to it, would be like, it'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So
just one of those mental hurdles I've always had in my head.
Or not.
Do what?
I was saying that's something we can talk about more, either on here or off air even. So
yeah, probably.
So all right, guys, we need questions, we need suggestions, and we need some stories. Don't let Mr. John Bidwell be the only one.
Yes. Yeah. Please send them to knifefreakshow@gmail.com with 1 S. That's knifefreakshow@gmail.com. Like Jonathan said, send us your questions, send us suggestions for shows or for guests, send us your stories. We want to hear them, because that's what this thing's all about, is making memories, basically. So
that's right. And this is the Knife Freak Show, not just the Jonathan and Chase show. So
yes,
all those knife freaks out there, we want you to be a part of it. So, and we do. On that note, we greatly appreciate you guys. Like, it still kind of boggles my mind that as many people as do get on here and listen to us and watch us ramble every week. So, so we greatly appreciate it.
Yes. Thank y'all all very much. You got anything else?
Nope. I think we're good. We'll see you guys next week.
And let your freak flag fly!